bringing up a few more people. Welcome to the panel. Van Ho, Bravo Ready, Ruby from XP Network, Aero. I'm bringing up a few more people. I see you, NFT Go. I've sent you a few requests. Just got to accept that. Juan Vivas has been waiting very patiently from Pixpel. Love you, dude. Trying to bring you up on stage. And for anybody else that wants to jump up, if we've got some room, I'll definitely bring you up. That's what this is about. Having some fun conversations, some good discussions, some good times, baby. It's game time. It's game time. So let me just see here. Any other requests? Juan, I'm sending you another invitation request. I want to hear what you got to say. You've got some great takes. And again, anybody that wants to join in, you're welcome to join us. But let's start with some quick intros for the new speakers that just joined us. NFT Go. Let's go. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing well. I got my coffee here. I'm pumped to be here again. You're one of my favorite hosts. My name's Jared. I'm kind of like the voice of NFT Go. We're an NFT analytics platform and trading aggregator. We provide infrastructure and API. We do a bunch of cool stuff. Just check out our site, check out our page, and yeah, I'm excited.
Thank you. Oh, let's go. Sorry, cut off for a sec. I wasn't sure if you were done, but yes, thank you. Welcome to the panel. I appreciate you throwing flowers my way as one of your favorite hosts. That makes me really happy. It makes me think that I'm doing a good job hosting these spaces. Sometimes I'm like, yo, what could I do better? Do I talk enough? Do I let my speakers talk enough? So you know how it is, trying to be a perfectionist here. But happy to hear that, brother. Welcome to the panel. We've also got, I don't know if 100x unmuted if you wanted to jump in or say something, or it's just I'm just rugging. But go ahead if you had something to say. If not, I'll go with Bravo Ready next. Welcome to the panel. Do we have John behind the mic? Who do we got behind the mic?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's John. Marcello, how are you, good sir? GMGM.
GMGM, you Montreal native. How are you doing today, brother? Happy to have you here.
Yes, sir. It's a nice, beautiful day. Sun is shining here in the 514 Montreal area. Me and Marcello repping it here on the East Coast. Yeah, I'm excited to be here. I'm on the Bravo Ready account. Bravo Ready is our mother company, the studio that brought the greatest game in Web3, VR1 Infinite, the world's first real money shooter. I am super excited to be here.
Super excited to have you here, bro. If you haven't overheard, I'm finally getting a gaming PC. My gaming setup could not keep up with BR1. There's just too much action in there, but now I could. Now I could.
Did you take my advice? I remember I sent you like specs of my PC a couple months ago or something. I remember sending you like get a 4080 or some shit. What'd you end up getting?
Oh, I have the specs written down somewhere. I could send it to you after, but don't worry, it's a good setup. I got somebody to build me the best that he could. Okay, well,
Let's
not the best on the
go.
market, but a good setup that could play probably anything without any lag. So I'm
Nice,
excited.
bro.
I'm excited.
Congrats.
Let's go, baby. But super happy to have you here, man. Super happy to have you here. Let's keep going around with some more intros, and then we get into the topic, guys. I'm super excited. Van Ho, Van Ho, welcome back. I know you jumped in for a moment before, and then I'm like, I'm sorry, I gotta bounce you off. I have somebody else that needed to jump on. You know how it is juggling these spaces, especially shout out to the Gag Me Spaces, one of the co-founders here, Van Ho. You know how it is now running spaces, but welcome to the panel. Also, congratulations on being part of the creator program for ex co-hosts now too. So, yeah, give us a quick intro. How are you doing today, Van Ho? And what do you do?
GMGM. Thank you so much for having me on. Yeah, honestly, I've just signed a bunch of things. The ex co-host creators, gaming on AVAX ambassador or creator, and a Cetify creator. Man, I don't know what's going on, but things are good moving up. My name is Vincent Van Ho. A lot of people call me Van Ho. What do you know? Whatever you want to call me, just call me Vinny Van, whatever, homie. I don't even know. A lot of people call me bruh. It's fine. My kids do as well. I am the community manager and game night coordinator for Dark Times. I'm also a gamer, streamer, content creator, co-founder of GagMe, and I also, I don't know, Web3 bestie. I just like to bring like the good vibes to game night. Like that's where you can find me is in game nights, which shout out the 100x podcast. I will be in their game night quickly following this session. So yeah, thank you so much for having me on. Always, always, always a pleasure to be with either one of you in a space. So super excited for today's topic as well.
Yeah, yo, congratulations, Vanho. You're honestly killing it since I think we had a pretty deep talk a few weeks ago, or I don't even know, a few months ago. Time flies by, and I know you've been going through some rough stuff, but look at you. The come ups, the globe's been crazy. Shout out to what you're doing with Avalanche and all the amazing stuff. Yeah, I'm so happy to see, I'm happy to see my friends win, and you're definitely winning. So keep it up, Vanho. You're doing great, and it's only going to get better. It's only going to get better. So keep it up. Let's keep going around the table with a few more intros before we get into the juicy panel. Today's topic: building longevity in Web3 gaming. For those tuning in, please like and share the space. Let's get some more people in here. But I'm going to pass it next to Juan Vivas from Pixpel. How are you doing, my friend? Welcome back. We had you on the Enzo Racing space on Tuesday. Today you're back on Game Time episode 10. Well, back. This is the first time you're on Game Time and not the last time you're going to be on Game Time. But happy to have you here. Want to give us a quick intro?
Sure, sure. Thank you very much for having me, Marcello. Hello, everyone. Thank you for this amazing having me this amazing topic, which is crucial from my point of view for Web3 gaming. My name is Juan. I'm the CEO and founder of Pixpel. We are a gaming platform that is offering the whole solution for gamers and developers to play the game and to create their wonderful game. Thank you for having me, guys.
Absolutely. You're always welcome to be here. Let's go around the table. A few more intros. We've just got joined by Gaming on AVAX. How are you doing, my friend? Do we got Sneaky Che?
Yes, sir, Marcello. It's Sneaky behind the Gaming on Avix account. Great to be here, like always.
Absolutely love it. For those that don't know what the fuck AVAX is, I mean, who doesn't? But do you want to give us a 20 to 30-second spiel about what you guys are doing?
Heck yeah, we're a premier layer one blockchain. Uh, we have public chain with a ton of blockchain enabled apps building on it. So think of us like any other layer one, Solana, Ethereum, anyone else. And we have some amazing technology with alt layer ones, especially with Avalanche 9000, the largest protocol upgrade coming since mainnet launch. So you're going to be seeing a lot more amazing applications, games, and everything else built on Avalanche. And just to highlight some of the great games that are getting built on it right now, we've got Off the Grid coming out next month. Maple Story is building out their Web3 product with us, and there's many more to come. So excited to be here, Marcello.
Absolutely love it, man. It's amazing to see Maple Story because I grew up not being a hardcore Maple Story player, but it was fun to see it around. And now it's like not a Web3, not a, now during Web3, so it's exciting to see that. And yeah, man, off the grid, I'm excited to see that. I first official Web3 game on a console, Xbox. So I think they're on PlayStation 2. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's super exciting to see. Very exciting to see. Beautiful. I just had to take someone off this panel. I love you, community gaming. I'm trying to bring up Zip Clash, who's been waiting patiently this whole time. So Zip Clash, if you see my request, you can accept it. I hope. I hope I didn't keep you waiting too long. Amazing, amazing. Ruby Edelstein from XP Network. How are you doing today, my friend? Give us a quick intro.
Marcelo, I'm doing good. Thank you for having me. I'm Ruby. I'm the co-founder and lead engineer of XP.NETWORK. We are an NFT bridge currently connected to over 30 chains. Yeah, we're looking to release our decentralized bridge in the next coming weeks, and also we are releasing a game which is called XP Rush, and it's going to be a multi-chain game, Web3 game. Excited to be here. Looking forward to speaking with you guys. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, brother. Super happy to have you here. Got a few more intros, guys, and we get right into it. Who do we got next? We got Arrow. Arrow, how are you doing, my friend?
Yeah, Marcello, good to be here. I'm doing good, thanks. Been a crazy day, juggling lots of hats, but yeah, I am the team lead at Veloce Media Group. We operate at the intersection of gaming, esports, content creation, and Web3. So we're using tokens and tokenization to elevate the gaming and content creator and audience experience. Besides that, I run spaces, I do some consultancy for a few projects, and yeah, generally get into spaces and talk about these kinds of topics with you guys. So really happy to be here. Really cool topic. bit of a spicy one for some, but looking forward to it myself.
Absolutely. I like the spicy. I like, please guys, bring in the hot takes. I don't want everybody to agree with each other. I want the fire. I want the violence. I'm kidding. I don't want no violence, but I like when people bring in different takes. Otherwise, everyone's just saying the same thing. So absolutely bring it, brother. It's welcome. Just don't hurt anybody. Let's go, baby. Who else we got next? I think we've done all except Anthony, Mr. Dip. How are you doing, Mr. Dip? Welcome to the panel, brother.
Hey, what's up? I'm doing well. I just figured I'd hop in here and sneak my way up. I don't think I was scheduled or anything like that, but always good to be here. For those that don't know me, I'm Anthony Francis from Mr. Dip, co-founder of Sydney Houston Group, with my business partner Melanie or Croissant, and we own a consultation firm here in this space. So we help with fundraising, we help with scaling and growth, user acquisition, all that fun stuff.
All that fun stuff. Absolutely love it. And my apologies, Zip Clash, I forgot about you. So, welcome to the panel. Thank you for patiently waiting. It's been crazy today, lots of speakers, but you're here, and I'm happy to have you here.
Yeah, like always, thank you, Marcello, for having us. So we are Zip Clash, a casual Web3 game on mobile. And we are building a farming and cooking game. We've been doing this in Web2 for a couple of years, and we have been pretty successful in creating fun experiences for users. We're trying to bring this into Web3 and looking forward to talk to all of you guys. Thank you for having us, as always.
Absolutely, absolutely. Happy to have you here, and I'm happy to get started, baby. It's game time, segment two. Well, segment two. It's just same question, same topic, just new set of speakers, as well as some of the ones sticking around. Shout out to Zataxter, 100x, and OG. So for those that are tuning in, we're gonna. Oh my God, Juan's ready to get into it. Let's get into it. He already knows the question since he's been tuning in. I'll repeat it for those tuning in right now and that just joined us. I will also say, please raise your hands, but if you want to jump in after somebody says something because you got a hot take to say, feel free. I don't want to have to pick you guys out every time. Let's make a nice discussion and dialogue, but let's get into it. The question of the day, okay? So, what I've noticed, I forget who did this report. I think it was G7 DAO or somebody, another big player, but over the course of the last 5 years, it was something like 90% of Web3 games don't end up surviving. And you know how it is. It's a very volatile landscape. It ain't easy to build Web3 games. It's already hard to build a game on its own. Forget about just Web3. Building a game on its own is hard. Building a business is hard. Statistically, most businesses end up failing. So when it comes to Web3 games, without bringing the negativity or the FUD, wag me, right? We're all gonna make it. I don't know if we're all gonna make it. A lot of games aren't gonna stick around in 5 to 10 years, unfortunately. I want us all to win, but a lot of us aren't gonna be around in a decade. It's just the math. It's just the hard cold reality, right? But that's how it is, man. But I want to know, for those that do want to stick around over the next decade, what do you guys got to do? How do we build a sustainable game that has longevity, that sticks around, that has players wanting to come back? How do you have the game surviving long enough to sustain these markets, to sustain all of these beautiful things? So let's get into it. I already see some hands. I'm gonna go with Juan first, then we'll go with Anthony and some of the other hands and people up on this panel.
Sure, sure. Well, regarding your question, actually, I raised my hand because I want to say something that everyone is trying to implement, which are the tokens. Tokens related to the games. If you see, the majority of tokenomics are for around 5 year maximum, and the tokenomics experts they design token for around 5 years, either deflationary tokens or inflationary tokens. But I truly believe that games, if they want to stick around for a long period of time, they should use at least a token of the blockchain, not their own tokens, because one of the things that we are partnering with Concordium blockchain is to use their wallet that is a KYC wallet. Why we do this? Because Web3 games they suffer scams, and they suffer degens, gamers that create bots and drain the tokens of the games, and basically a game developer, a game creator, he focused on creating an amazing games. And when they implement the tokens, they give the best tool for scammers and for bad people to destroy the game itself. And the game is rooted too much to the tokens rewards. And this is another thing that maybe we can talk later. It's about I created an article in LinkedIn. It's about who is worst, the developer of the game or the gamers, because the developers of the game, the majority of them create a game to get some money, and after a year maximum, they disappear. I remember one guy, Crimson Caravan, he said something about that. And the gamers, the majority of the gamers are degens that they just want to get some money out of the game and also disappear. So who is first, the egg of the chicken? So one of the things I want to bring to this amazing space is about token. My point of view is that games have to stop implementing their own tokenomics. They have to base their business model on another thing that is selling the NFT or getting money out from the token, and using the token of the blockchain itself, and implementing another game, another stream revenue, like the gotcha stream revenue that we talked on the past space. So this is what I have to say. Thank you, Marcelo.
Absolutely, brother. That's an interesting take. I haven't heard of that before. So instead of having our own token, using the native blockchain token. So if you're on AVAX, on Avalanche, use AVAX. If you're on Arbitrum, use ARB, et cetera, et cetera. So that's an interesting one. I would love to hear what some people have to say. I see some hands going up. I love it. Let's get into it. But absolutely love the take. That's a really interesting one. We're going to go with some of the first hands, and then we'll go with the other ones that went up just now. Anthony, go ahead.
Yeah, there's two approaches I'd like to take, and I'll start first with the game, just as a gaming product itself. Let's be honest, games don't last forever. I mean, there are some, there are unicorns. This is something we talk about with our clients quite often, is you have to understand your product and the life cycle. If you're building a hyper casual mobile game, the odds of you lasting the test of time, 10, 20 years, is fucking pretty close to zero, excuse my language. Let's be honest. I mean, there are unicorns that make it, they remain relevant, but generally what happens is a big hit game that goes viral becomes a launch pad for a studio to keep reiterating and creating new games. And that's no different than when you're building a more complex game, realistically. I mean, the games that really stand the test of time are revolutionary first person shooters that just have massive budgets. They have massive, sticky characteristics and features within the gameplay loop. And then MMORPGs, of course. And, the MMORPG genre is something that has quickly become relatively dry, if you will. It's just been years and years of carbon copies. So I do think there's going to be some big titles kind of reaching that pinnacle level again in that market as some innovation comes. But obviously, they take years and years to build as well. So the amount of time, the amount of money you put in is directly correlating with what you get out in terms of a life cycle. So you have to have realistic expectations of your life cycle. If you're building a game, just finding success and lasting 3 years is a huge success, whether you're in the Web3 industry or not. That is a great accomplishment, and everybody should be proud of being able to do that. So when we look at games in the Web3 space that have died over the past 3 years, let's be honest, it's no different in the Web2 industry. Most of them died over the past 3 years as well. So that's one really important characteristic to look at. But then if we really want to dive into the Web3 sector and identify something that I think is one of the plaguing issues that exists, is that games themselves have particular shelf lives, whether it be 6 months to a year, whether it be 3 to 5 years, whether it be a 10 plus year kind of legacy. Or, when we look at tokens, tokens are forever. It's deployed on an immutable blockchain that essentially does not expire, will be here for decades and decades to come. And there's not an appropriate match between the tokens and the gameplay or the game life cycles that are kind of being constructed. So that's something that I'm not sure exactly what the solution is yet, but you're always going to have that problem where people come in, they invest in a token, the game's only supposed to last 3 years at best, but the token continues on. And of course they get misled or they buy into the hype, they marry their bags, and they get very upset. And we get a lot of negative kind of pushback as a result of that. But transparency can definitely solve the solution or provide a solution there, solve some of the problems. And then of course, there's the question, should tokens be retail investments as well? Or should they just function within the game as a feature so that it does die with the game and then keep the investment at the more, should we say, accredited level, if you will?
Absolutely love it. That was a great take. Very great take. life cycles, man, those are something that people need to be mindful of. Like you said, even in Web 2 games, I think that, even being around, being relevant or popping off for 3 straight years is a big deal, right? And I think to capture people's attention for a long time, it's really hard. It's not just Web3 games, it's gaming projects in general. But yeah, I love a lot of the points you mentioned, but I want to hear from some of the other speakers as well. I'm going to pass it to John from Bravo Ready.
So I want to make a certain distinction. Instead of talking about the tools about longevity for a second, I also want to kind of pinpoint something that you could look at in almost any other industry that is like an emerging industry, pioneers coming out of the woodwork, building stuff. You see this in every industry, right? Like pharmaceuticals, you saw it 100 years ago. The gold rush was another one. You could go on, the list doesn't end. In Web3, 2 years, 3 years ago, we were in this pioneering era where a lot of people come in with either vaporware or legitimate projects and everything in between. And now we're in this great age of consolidation. And I like to use the pharmaceutical industry as a good example because I know for a fact, coming from that industry about a decade ago, companies like Pfizer and Merck, these guys, they don't do R&D anymore. They used to do R&D 100 years ago, but now what they do is they outsource the R&D to smaller projects in universities and in smaller labs. And once they have viable IP and strong potential candidates for research or whatever it is, they'll buy out that small gaming studio in the pharmaceutical space, so to speak, and kind of take on that long-term approach for these things to grow. And so you asked the question like what the longevity is going to be, but I think it's important to note that the longevity may not start with the same founders. The longevity may not start with where it began, but the project will live on. And we haven't seen major studios come into this space yet. We haven't even seen like the full power of what AVAX is going to do or what Binance is going to do or what Ubisoft is going to do in this space. We're still early in that era. So the longevity is more like, if anything, longevity is not to be successful. It's to stay afloat for the next 5 years and watch everyone burn around you. And through the ashes, the phoenixes of the space will fly up and be reborn. And lots of money will come in because that it even happened in the cannabis space, 5-6 years ago in Canada, right, where all these pioneers came, tried to do something, then on their last dollar or the successful ones, they all consolidated into larger companies where they can centralize the innovation a bit better or organize it a bit better. And I think that is something that is inevitable in all spaces. And we just haven't seen that in Web3 yet because we're still early on the larger scale of timeline is what I mean there. So yeah, that's kind of my take on longevity.
That's a really great take and a good one too, man. I like that. I think you raised some really great points. We're just so early. There isn't enough money in the market right now. But eventually, the big boys are going to have to come in. And that's where, the ones that stayed afloat, that survived, oftentimes, they get bought out by the bigger boys and, the founders change. So longevity sometimes comes with having different people running the ship, right? Some people are going to bring it from point zero to point one, and then a Ubisoft or a Sega or a Nintendo might come and take it from 1 to 100. So it's really interesting.
Exactly. Think of Rocket League. Great example.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want to expand on that for those that don't know enough on Rocket League, just for a few seconds?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it goes without saying, super sick game. I loved it when it came out. I don't know how I even heard about it so early on in 2015, but I got like the one of the earliest versions of this game, and it was just sick at the core of it. They really had a sick concept of the game, and it was built by a developing company called Psyonix. They never strayed away from the core mechanics of that game up until this point. They've built different game modes. They've had new partnerships. You could buy a Batman car. The list goes on. They really expanded horizontally all of the things that you could do in this game. But vertically speaking, the game is a fucking soccer game with cars, right? Like don't like overcomplicate the thing. And they just really did a great job at making an innovative game. Now, fast forward to today, nearly 10 years later, you ask yourself, how did that game go from like this small vertical slice of a great concept and become this absolute behemoth of a game now that it's like one of the biggest esports games in the world, with the craziest sponsorships in the world, with the craziest skins in the world, the things that they probably could have never imagined when they were a bunch of schmucks at this developing company called Psyonix. Well, the reason is because Epic Games bought them, and so there's a very important understanding of longevity right there, that you start with a product, you start it humbly with a group of 10 guys. Sounds familiar, right? And if you keep building through the constant Web 2 bears or Web 3 bears or whatever you want to call it, eventually, once you get the eyes on you, the project will take a whole new level of life, and the longevity is a completely different game at that point. So yeah, just great example in Web3 or Web2 gaming.
Absolutely. Thank you for expanding on that. I love examples like that because it really helps paint a bigger picture. And yeah, man, some of these small teams, they build something incredible for long enough, and then they get bought out by Epic Games or one of these giants after a long enough time. And it's like it really goes to show. And I'm excited, for a lot of players in this industry to keep crushing it and then, get bought out by Blizzard or, Epic Games or, one of these big boys, Sony. Shout out to Sony with Sonium, their new blockchain, which is interesting, right? I'm curious to see what plays they're gonna do, and who would are So there's just a lot of interesting stuff there. Absolutely love it, John. That was a great point. Let's go with some of the other hands. Van Ho, how are you doing? Actually, before I pass it to you, I just want to say for those tuning in, let's like and share the space. We've got another 30 minutes of this amazing panel, some amazing speakers here. Please give everyone a follow as well that's on the stage. But yes, please like and share the space. I want to get some more people in here. So much great knowledge, so many big brains, and such a great discussion going on over here. So like and share the space. Go ahead, Van Ho. I'll pass it back to you.
Yeah, thank you. So I think the way that we can build for the longevity, right? Like I feel like the last few years we've just been in CT Twitter in our own little bubble, circulating the same users, the same people, the same things. I think if we really want Web3 to make it, let alone Web3 gaming, that UGC is going to need to be a priority. User generated content, having more people talk about it outside of Twitter. Twitter is so great, but there's an algorithm, and you're only seeing like like a fourth, a third, a point, fractional point of everything that's even in the system, no matter who you follow, right? Um, I think a lot of the problems in the past have been just big promises to early investors, and then just working on a team and kind of understanding how things can change so fast in the background day to day. We always have this running joke that one day in crypto is almost like a week, and it is. I mean, we are constantly working, people all around the world. And the markets, change so fast. And just like a blink of an eye, Japan can pull out half the liquidation, and we're just like, holy shit. Um, but the promises, to a lot of people, I think have been one of the things that have hurt Web3 gaming the most, starting out with the NFTs and either just changing up the system and not actually using them. I always feel like when that happens to me, I get a little salty about it. I don't get excited for the future of it if they're not delivering promises that maybe they couldn't keep from the beginning, right? So I think that's something that's going to need to change, as well as just like starting to like reach outside of Twitter. I got the opportunity to go to TwitchCon recently, and my number one question was, "Have you heard of Web3 gaming?" And let's just say nine out of 10 people. I probably talked to over 100 people, and only two of them knew what Web3 gaming was. I feel like those are some crazy numbers, and so asking what their favorite game was. Fortnite, cool. So I then took Fortnite and started explaining how that would work in crypto gaming. Um, so I think getting outside of crypto Twitter bubble and getting out to the other people, the only way that we're going to spread this is talking to everybody about it. Even if, your best friend doesn't like gaming, talking about that game. Sometimes like they'll be like, oh, I've heard of, sometimes it takes 2 or 3 times to hear something in order to actually go for something. And so, or even more if you have a toddler, if any parents down there, you feel me, with the food thing. But yeah, talking about it more. User generated content, like that's the only way that we're gonna make gaming last longer. Everybody says like make good games, but it's just like, what's your definition of a good game? Because that's different each person, right? So um, I think a good game loop, no matter the game, making sure that you're setting up for the longevity of the future and not just looking at that 2 to 3 years, expand back, look at major goals. Like, are we going to be the first game like off the grid to reach like Xbox and PS5? That's a major fucking goal. Sorry, excuse my language. That's a major goal. Like, that's a major aspiration. And so, reaching for things like that instead of just being so closed off and thinking just about like the small aspects that maybe you had laid out in the future, but working towards those big goals as well. Because, like, having good gameplay, good feed, people talking about your game, a great community. Your game has to evolve once you've made it. You can't just keep the game the same. People will get so bored. And today, people's attention span is so 10 seconds, 5 seconds. And so, trying to figure out how to structure your game for people to play in longevity because if you think about the games that have been out there and that are big right now are games that have been building for like over 15 years, 20 years, long time. And that's so different in Web3 because you're building almost in front of people. Very, very rarely anymore do you have a game that was like, surprise, we've been building for 3 years, like come try our game, it's kick ass. So I don't know. I think there's so many things to think about in the longevity of Web3. And I still feel we are so early in this space, but like conversations like this, right, are gonna make us grow. So I think that's also another great point. It's just the conversation of it. Like we have to talk about it. We have to bring the brains together and get this out there. Like that's how I see it.
Absolutely love it. We have to get it out there. We got to see more, absolutely agree. People got to see, especially gamers that have no idea what Web3 gaming is. They got to get in front of this. And I think there's already a bunch of quality games out there that I think they could enjoy. They just haven't been exposed to it. And I think, you mentioned UGC is a huge avenue. It's been brought up a few times already on the space, and I love it. I think user generated content is so important, having content creators making content as well on social media and putting it out there. That's how I discovered some of my favorite games, is through content creators. And I think that seeing more of that is only net positive for the space. And especially another one, speaking of content creators, seeing Web2 quote unquote content creators making Web3 content would be an interesting one, because then there'd be a crossover between both audiences, right? And then if they, if their audience loves what they see, they're just going to want to play the games, right? So absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. Let's go with some of these other hands. I'm not sure who raised their hand next. I think it was Arrow, and then I want to go to OG and NFT Go.
Yeah, yes, lots of great takes. I'm going to try and take a different angle. Yeah, I think like runway is the key, and it sounds super simple on the surface of it, but I think programming yourself to last would be a good way to underline what others have said before. It's obviously having a great game is one thing. Having it unique enough and having scope for iteration, kind of like what Van Ho was saying, like a game should continuously developing. Could there be a number two? Does there need to be a number two? Can you keep adding features, but also starting off with enough features so that it's compelling enough as it is? But also, when I think about runway, I think about good business, and I think just to be a little bit mean, I think there's a lot of studios out there that perhaps require more business sense behind them. When you look at tokenomics as a subject, particularly, I think people just imagine this chart with founders and team and advisors and treasury, and as if it adds some element of authority or wisdom to a team. But it's really easy to screw that picture up and screw that chart up, and not least because there are some kind of predatory relationships in the industry. It might be investors, it might be exchanges, but I think that goes back to what others have said already as well. It's not necessarily pushing too hard too early. When you start up any kind of business, you don't establish the business with some funding and then buy all the best tools, rent the most premium property for your team to operate in, and spend money on all the best KOLs and do all that stuff. You're still a team that has come a long way potentially, with just the team that you had from kind of humble beginnings. And there's no reason why funding and things like that should particularly change that. And when you look at runway, it seems a lot of projects really get themselves into a difficult situation by rushing to get to their end goal, perhaps under certain pressures, and making poor decisions, making poor deals that really every time they make that decision, their treasury is going down, their advisor treasury is going down, the community treasury is going down, and what should be a 5-year runway ends up being pretty much a 1-year runway, and they're kind of forced to essentially buy back or die. It's good business sense and understanding that, you know, just because you've got some money in the bank, it doesn't mean that you have to spend it. To allow you to grow organically, keep developing, keep acquiring users in the right kind of users, in such a way that you're just continuously growing, continuously iterating, and then you give yourself that chance to outlast. Was it Bravo Ready that said it, or I think it was Bravo Ready who said like that ability to outlast when everyone else is just going flat out and throwing all their cards on the table so early on. It's going to be really key, because if you get a bear market and you've still got money in the bank, you know, you're going to survive and get noticed, especially if you've got users and you've got great content creation and all that stuff around it, which has come about organically, as opposed to just throwing all of your money and all your treasury and printing money, which puts pressure on the chart, puts pressure on everyone who's a holder. It misaligns the already misaligned investors. Yeah, it's just about being smart, being business savvy, and focusing on the game and not overextending yourselves a lot of the time, I think.
Absolutely agree, man. Having a good business sense, knowing how to manage your funds, you know, man, it almost gets me mad. I worked for a project, I will not name them in the past, but you know, they raised over $10 million, and my God, all of it just went away. And it's just like, what were you guys spending your marketing budget
It's
on,
not
man?
that much, right? Like when you realize how much things can cost, particularly if you play the kind of Web3 playbook, it's not that much money. It can disappear so quickly. If you've got decent devs, they're costing you tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars a month. You don't need to scale from 10 to 50 team members within the first 6 months of getting funding. It's madness.
Yeah, absolutely. Running through your runway too quickly is definitely one way to put yourself out of business. So, absolutely agree, man. People got to be more mindful of how they spend their funds. They have to, you know, especially in the market that we're in, if you raise money in a bull market and you know that in a year and a half or two, it's likely that the market won't be the way it is now, quote unquote, you know, bear market. You should probably keep some of it to survive that bear market so that you can make it through the next. And I get it. We're building games, but until games and Web3 are kind of on its own, people got to be mindful, right? Because we are impacted by the market sentiment and all these things. So people go through their funds way too quick, and it just ends up killing them. So I've seen it myself, and yeah, no, that's a really great take. I love it. But speaking of great takes, I want to see some of the other hands here. OG has been holding his hand up for a minute, so I'm going to pass it to you, brother.
Yeah, I was gonna make a joke about Avalanche and ask if that's the red triangle thing, but it's like 20 minutes late now, so I'll skip that. Love you. Yeah, I mean, definitely echo everyone's thoughts. Just wanted to kind of zoom out a little bit. I think someone mentioned it earlier. When you look at, context is really important. So sure, whatever the report was that said 90% or more of Web3 games die, but I'm not sure what the exact stat is, but I'm pretty sure it's something like 80 to 87% of games in general die within the first 3 years or past the third year. So a lot of games fail regardless, whether or not they've got Web3 uh, isn't really as critical. I mean, you're far more likely to maybe fail if you can't find product market fit and you're building in Web3 and you can't crack it. But you look at Concord and Sony and how that story kind of unfolded. You were just talking about money earlier and how, you shouldn't run out of runway. But in some instances, it's like you still got money. It's just not really worth the investment anymore. Like you could probably still continue developing Concord, but like, is it worth it? I think Sony reportedly spent something between $200 to $400 million on that game that failed to get like more than 700 players since they launched and shut down in like a week. And I can tell you, like, 20 plus examples of Web3 games that have cracked that number just on a play to airdrop campaign. So I don't think it's just purely, oh, if you're building in Web3, you're far more likely to fail, as much as it's like if you're building a game, full stop, you're likely to fail regardless. I think it's rare that we find games that actually do really well. It's even more rare that they continue to do well, right? Some games just kind of die out when the meta is gone or it shifts or whatever. But I wanted to touch on another point, which again was like 20 minutes ago, so I'll try to hopefully be as concise, but also remember what I was going to say. The point about using like the native chain token, I think that kind of defies the purpose of actually building for most studios in Web3. I feel like the whole appeal is, oh, we can, launch our own token and cash in and make a bunch of money and monetize in different ways. So this whole like universal gaming token pitch that we've been seeing for the last 3+ years, I don't really think it'll ever work. I think Gala tried it, and you kind of saw how that worked out for everyone. They got sued by a bunch of their own studios. I don't think any of their games are actually still in development anymore. So yeah, it's tricky, but you got to understand, like most games come into Web3 because sure, maybe they're excited about the tech, but also they're excited about the upside and how they can monetize differently and how they can go beyond the shackles of the platforms like Epic and Apple, iOS, all that usual stuff. So I think it's a loaded question. There's a lot to unpack. We talked about it a little bit earlier. Obviously, a lot of the answers and examples are great, but my like one word for it is context. Like I think longevity for you as a business just depends on context. Like, are you running out of money? Do you need to raise? Then you probably might launch a token and it might be premature. Like that's just like contextually, it's not a bad idea. I think it might be a bad idea like on principle, but you see a lot of game studios like launch a token and it's out of desperation and you can't really fault them for it, right? And then on the flip side, it's like, don't be too stubborn. Context might be you're building something, no one wants to try it, but you're like, oh, it's just that the Web3 guys don't like games that are fun. But like reality is you pivot into Web2 and gamers there also don't find your game fun, which, not going to name any studios, but a couple of studios have felt that personal experience as well. So yeah, I think it just really depends on context, man. Like there's no one size fits all, but in the end of the day, you surviving just really depends on like how you set up, who you got around you, how much money you raised, what are you trying to build, what's your actual end goal, what's your 5-year, 10-year plan. Like all of that really matters.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that, dude. Context is always such an important an important variable, right? I think that not everything is always black and white. And sometimes you have to look at the gray as that's where things are. But very interesting point, in terms of Gala, absolutely, what happened with them and the whole conversation around, having your own native token or having a universal one. I'm curious. I want to hear some of the other takes. I think Juan would love to jump in after. I see him throwing some emojis. I want to go with an NFT go first, and then we'll go with some of the other hands. But absolutely love it, OG.
Yeah, so great take so far. Arrow actually kind of said what I was going to say, so I'm just going to reiterate a few things. So I was going to say it a little differently as manage your burn rate. I've seen so many people just start wasting money. Since Arrow already echoed a lot of this, to get funding, don't just pay yourself and your buddies a bunch of money, right? Be very mindful of where you're spending your money. Don't just hire random KOLs just because they have a bunch of followers. Like you need to have really strict results-based KPIs. Like not you don't just hire a KOL and be like, all right, I'm going to pay you just because you gave me like some followers. No, the KPIs need to be based on user acquisition and user retention. Don't just throw a bunch of money to some random influencer. But Arrow already echoed a lot of that sentiment. So I'll just tell a little story for one of my buddies. So he's made 2 exits on companies that he's founded, and so I listened to him and I've learned a lot from him. So his first company that he started, he did not make a successful exit, and when he was trying to get acquired, this big company. So he was a master distiller, right? He owned his own distillery, and the company asked him, okay, how much is it going to cost you or us to train somebody to distill your lemon vodka? And he had no idea, right? And that, alongside with a few other questions where he couldn't properly answer them, ended up with him not getting acquired, that company going under, right? But the lesson that he learned is data, right? And so if you want to get more funding or if you want to get acquired, you need to have solid data, right? Like how much does it cost you to acquire a user? How often do your users stay around? How long do they stay around? how much do you pay your devs, which of your community managers are actually resulting in user acquisition and user retention. So just collect data, be really hardcore about your data. That's what we do here at NFT Go, right? We collect data and it's so incredibly important. It's easy to get lost in the sauce because you have so many moving pieces. But if you want to be a big dog and sit at the adult table, you need to have data, or else none of these real VCs are going to give you funding or acquire you. So other than that, I'll just make it short because I agree with a lot of what y'all are saying.
Absolutely love it, man. I think data is super important. Got to look at the KPIs. Can't just be throwing a bunch of money at KOLs just because of they've got a nice fat figure next to their follower account, which doesn't even mean anything nowadays, right? Anybody could grow from, we've seen it all, dude. We've seen it all. It's easy to pump up numbers. We've all done it. I think that at the end of the day, we want results. And, sometimes the smallest creators are even the most effective ones, less than 10K followers, but they've got a hot community. They actually give a fuck about their community. They put their heart and soul into the video that they edit and that they make and all that stuff, man. A lot of these people, 100 plus followers, and not just about everybody. I don't want to throw everybody under the bus because there's some cool ones, but some people just won't deliver. They just won't deliver. I'll leave it at that. Absolutely love it. Damn it, I was gonna go to Zip Clash just now because they've been waiting for a minute. I think they had to bounce off. That's okay. Avax, you want to go? I see you unmuted.
Yeah, Marcello, I think that's a really good dovetail into what my point was going to be, and that's community is the number one thing, and that's the only thing that matters. And you, as a game dev, really have to look at yourself in the mirror and understand the difference between building an audience and building a community. All right. And a lot of these KOLs and influencers, like you're saying, Marcello, have audiences, right? And the reason why you have so much more impact with those micro influencers that have less than 1,000 followers is because those like first 1,000 followers really probably give a shit about that person. Either they know them in real life or they're just friends with them because they're in other like communities and projects that they like. So when they see a post from that person, it's like, this isn't a billboard advertisement. This is just an authentic, like, hey, I'm participating in this. I'm passionate about this. I'm sharing like my experience in this space. And so, like, when I look at Web 2 games as well, right? I think the fighting game circuit is a really good example. Evo, they do their, annual tournaments in Vegas every year, and it's like like tens and tens of thousands of fighting game people bringing in their little sticks and controllers. And so, what that is like literally titles like Smash, Tekken, Mortal Kombat, things that don't have new content, things that have been out for decades, games that have like for no reason they should not be played anymore, but the only reason that they are still, in the like front of that vertical, that gaming vertical is because of their fervent communities, right? They're like, we don't want to play other fighting games. We want to play Smash Melee or we want to play Mortal Kombat. And so if you can really create a community, right? It doesn't matter how big your audience is. It doesn't matter all this other stuff, because those are the folks who are gonna, when you have your next Planetfall pack drop, gonna drop 2 to 4 ETH on it, and then it's like, oh damn, they like if you translate ETH into dollars, that's like 5 grand plus of a single player dropping money. And I think you get that from community members more so than audience, folks who are just passing by, might monetize a little bit, might come and play your game. I think audience members are better for like player liquidity. They're going to be your big base of, average players who's going to come in, make sure that there's low queue times. But, monetization, it's always been the whales. And I think whales is just another word for community members, the diehard folks. And so if you, can just focus on building your community, you don't have to be AAA. You don't have to be, the biggest game in the world. You can be a niche game like Spellborn. You can just, be an indie developer and have success if you focus on your building your tribe out.
I love that. It's all about building your tribe out. Really well said. You've raised some incredible points, Sneaky Che. Absolutely love it. I'd add to it, but we're running out of time. We're almost at the top of the hour. We've got 8 minutes left. I don't mind usually going over, but I got to run through some things after this. Almost a 2 hour space. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Let's go with some of the other hands here. Before that, Zip Class jumped off. They're back. I think we lost you for a sec. Zip Class, you've been holding your hand up for a minute, and you've been here from the very beginning. I want to hear from you if you have anything you have to say. I hope you could hear me. I know you just DM me you're having connectivity issues, but go ahead if you can. And they just rugged. All right, never mind then. I'll pass it to Juan. I want to hear from Juan. You've been holding up your hand for a minute. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah. This is to answer the to OG. I think that, well, your approach is a political approach, but there are facts after we experience all these years with Web3 gaming. We realized that actually tokens are not suitable for games because token for games, as you mentioned, they release the token, or they start selling the token actively when they are desperate about funding. And to be honest, what is a token? So a token for a developer company for a game is all about raising funds. Is to be a security token. From the point of view of a gamer, is a utility token because they expect to use the token on the game. So the point of view between the seller and between the buyer of the token is totally the opposite. So when you send that into the market, I mean, you're selling a product that is not for the buyer, but the buyer think that is for them. So this is where the chaos is coming. If we're talking about a project, let's say a game platform like yours, or a console, or something else that it have a wider options to implement the tokens on their ecosystem, is totally different because a game is just a game. You don't create the tokenomics to offer grants to create another game or another project on top of your game. You do that when you are on an ecosystem, or when you are in another kind of companies, like a blockchain, let's say. So the tokenomics is the one that offer value to the token itself. And when you're a game, the only value you can offer to that token in your tokenomics is related to what you are selling and what you're offering inside your game. So from my point of view, which is based on my experience, tokens for games are just about scamming people. It's about security. Security from the point of view of the seller of the token. When you're talking about another kind of project, yes, it's different because the value is wider for the token itself. So at this point, in a mature Web3 gaming market industry, games are not using properly tokens. So that's why I truly believe that they could use blockchain or universal tokens, because also we're talking about distribution channels. The distribution channel of a token, of a game, is extremely little if you compare with the distribution channel of an ecosystem or of a platform or something like that, because they have different games where you can use the same token itself, and they implement exchanges, they implement other places to be able to buy and sell the token, which add value to the token itself. So token is all about value, and a game can just offer a little value to the token. Meanwhile, a platform or other projects will offer much more value. I'm just talking about statistics. That's all. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thanks for adding that. I think I saw OG raise his hand right back up after you mentioned that. Do you want to jump in, OG? Anything you'd like to say?
Yeah, I don't want to go back and forth too much. It's just to clarify, I don't think we disagree on principle. I agree that the current structure of token design in gaming in our space is still definitely early and it's broken. But I'll use our boy on Avalanche as an example right now. You can't do one ecosystem token or a universal gaming token, because if for whatever reason Off the Grid was just using AVAX and they decided to do a bunch of rewards, just basic economics, right? If they're going to give out a bunch of AVAX, that's going to devalue, the value of the AVAX token, right? Which hurts other aspects of the business. You then introduce something like Shrapnel, and all of a sudden they want to burn the token, and if they're only using AVAX and they're burning AVAX, then again, you add complexity because now it's more scarce, so it's going to go up in value, which might make it harder for new gamers that are trying to get into the game if they have to spend AVAX. So I think the whole point of having your own token is to actually control your own economy, and I think you don't have to look too far. You could just look at some of the most successful, quote unquote currencies. I'm not going to say tokens because they're not Web3, but like look at Fortnite and what they do with V-Bucks, right? Look at gold and Diablo. Look at all of these examples of off-chain currencies where entire economies just exclusively live in that ecosystem. And it's not like if you're playing, let's say you're on Epic Game Store, if you play Fortnite, your V-Bucks intake or withdrawals or whatever doesn't affect your Rocket League experience because they're two completely separate economies essentially. So I think I agree with you on the principle that at the moment or historically maybe teams have used tokens to cash out, et cetera, but I do think it's a far more plausible scenario to suggest that in the future you should have these economies built almost in silos. I mean, I guess you can chime in, by the way, Sneaky, but that's kind of the whole point of doing subnets and L3s and all of this. It's essentially like giving you full control, not being a slave to transactions, and if someone's got a big launch on the same chain, it doesn't mean that your server goes down. Like, it frees you from all of that stuff. You have full ownership over your whole ecosystem. So yeah, again, don't want to kind of just go back and forth, but trying to clarify, like, I think we do agree on some things, but I definitely don't think that, like, if you think that the token in a game pitch is a scam, then boy, do I have something to tell you about the universal gaming token pitch.
Yeah, and I think to bounce off OG, like you can use AVAX as your gas on a subnet, but I think the difference is like compelling everyone else in the ecosystem to do that as well. So giving folks that optionality to configure the experience how they want to, I think is what having a non-universal gaming token allows you to do, is just opens up that design space for the developers and the end user experience.
Absolutely love it, guys. Absolutely love it. I'd love to keep going, but we're gonna have to start wrapping up very soon. Actually, now, but there's a few hands, so we're gonna wrap it up with you guys, and then we'll close out the space for today. 2 hours going. This has been a hot ass space. Love the takes, love the insights, love the discussion. Zip Clash, I'm gonna bring you up first, just because you've been waiting for a long time, and I think you've been rugging, but you're back, baby. We're happy to have you back. Go ahead.
Thank you, Marcello, for patiently bringing me up again and again. So we had a lot of great takes. I try to keep it short and sweet. I guess there is two things that we could consider for the longevity. First of all, there was a lot of talk about tokenomics and how could this be sustainable. But so far, we are really early into this, but we are, I guess, not sharing everything that other teams are doing. For example, what exactly happened inside the gala? In the Web2 side, it's really typical that this kind of studios are shares and their experiences in the postmortem. So the space is very small, and we should try to help each other more. These kind of sharing knowledge would help us to go through this route sooner. And the second thing is that I guess creating games is really risky and hard. Creating a Web3 game is far beyond that. But doing this, there are a lot of teams that try to create the most innovative things that is really hard, and it just increases the risk, and we see a lot of them fail in the end. So if you just do one single thing that you're really good at it, for example, in our case, creating cooking games, I guess that would be enough for the space to have a small product that is working, fun for the community, and we could grow the space one step at a time. I guess that's the way. Thank you for having us, as always, Marcelo.
Absolutely, brother. Always happy to have you, and you're always welcome back to the panel. Let's go with somebody to your hands. Dustin, by the way, I'm trying to bring you up, brother. I'm not sure if it's working. Let me just see something here. Dustin's gonna finish off with a freestyle rap to close out the space. Let me see. I might have to remove some people here, but yeah, we're gonna start wrapping it up. I'm gonna pass it to Anthony and then Arrow.
Yeah, I know we're on the hour here, breaching the hour, so I'm going to try and move quick. But I just want to take it back to the conversation between OG and Juan. Juan, I do think you're breaching into a direction that has a lot of merit. But I have to back what OG had said. And the greatest summary of everything OG said was contextual. That's a really important um, you know, well, synopsis, if you will. But some things to note, obviously, having diversity in tokens means a free market. Free market means competition. Competition means those that are successful and those that do the right things are the ones that rise to the top. That's very important to have, I would have to say. But the real issue isn't a generality, right? You were speaking in generality, one, and I think that's where the mistake was. This is not generality. These are isolated. Although many isolated incidents, they're still very isolated. And in a vacuum, conceptually, a lot of these ideas would work on paper, but in practicality, they didn't. But as we look at this market, something that's very important to remember is that there's an identity crisis. There's multiple crises, I should say. There's a variety of them in Web3. But the token crisis is the biggest one. And that's just that simply nobody understands what their token truly represents. Or I shouldn't say nobody, but many people, many founders do not. Is it a financial instrument? Is it strictly to represent equity within a company? Is it functional within a game to represent the game economy or game currency? Is it somewhere in between as a hybrid? Is it an onboard and on ramp in terms of payment processing? There are so many different functionalities of a token, and I think sometimes it gets really messy when people try to blur the lines and they don't fully understand what it is they're trying to accomplish with their token. Now, when we talk about some of the predatory behavior that Arrow had mentioned before, yeah, there's lots of it, and that's a bad thing, but that happens in any emerging market. But the real issue, in my opinion, with that predatory behavior is that in this space, it gets kind of idolized. It gets put on a pedestal many times because it's seen as a beacon of success. And when others see that as a beacon of success, they replicate that behavior. We see a lot of replication in this space. So when people are replicating negative intentions, not realizing or perhaps realizing that they were negative intentions, that just kind of compounds the effect. And we get this massive ripple out where people think these guys did something great. They made a whole ton of money. That's what I should go do. And that becomes the norm. And that's not necessarily the case, obviously, as we're still, as an industry and research and development and trying to find our way. But I do think we will find our way, right? Again, the cream always rises to the top. So I suspect, the approach that we're taking as it evolves will end up being a suitable one.
Absolutely love it, brother. Thank you for bringing that up. Let's pass it to Arrow, and then we'll start closing it up. I see Juan raise his hand again. We'll go up with him in a sec. Go ahead, Arrow.
Yeah, I was just going to add like one personal thing that I like to see in games and just general Web3 projects is really strong IP, like visual IP. I think who was it that was mentioning Street Fighter? I can't remember. But yeah, things like Street Fighter, it has that Hadouken. When you think of Mortal Kombat, it has its fatalities. When you think of Mario, it has Mario. And that's something that I really love to see. I played a bit of Forgotten Playland earlier. I thought, yeah, this has got a real aesthetic that I can see lasting. And that's something that I think is underestimated massively in this space as well. It's like if you look at Nyan Heroes, it's got the whole cats thing. Like people can get behind that thing, whether they're playing it or whether they're not playing it. They always have that image in their head of what that means to them. And when a new iteration comes, when a new version comes or new life is breathed into the character or the world that's being created, I think that's something that's super powerful and can, make a project last. I think that can bring longevity because it can then go beyond the game. You can bring toys, you can bring shows, all this kind of stuff. And I don't think we see enough storytelling. I don't think we see enough kind of mascots for projects, like in the sense that they can be that kind of front man of the brand. I would love to see more of that because I think that storytelling and that building of brand can be something that really brings extra longevity to projects. I have to agree on the side of I don't think we should have ecosystem tokens that are applicable everywhere because you do need that customization for different games for different users, etc. I do think that's necessary on the whole. But I do at the same time agree that to date it's been kind of butchered a lot, and I agree with Anthony fully that a lot of the mistakes that we've seen, hopefully people start learning from them instead of replicating them and idolizing them, because there's definitely potential here. I think you could argue strongly that it's the best way to release a token is to sandbox a game with a virtual token, and understand how you can discover price within a sandbox environment and then take that to the world. But again, I like to always kind of revert my thinking when I'm identifying the negatives in the space to the fact that we would not be sitting here having this conversation if we didn't have the mechanics that we have had. That speculative nature, whether it's in Web3 or Web2, that where there's innovation, you need all the bullshit that goes with it. You need all the creative destruction that takes place, and you can only hope that conversations like this and a lot of the destruction happens. Hopefully, from the ashes come much better models and thriving businesses, and hopefully we'll all still be here to enjoy it.
Absolutely love it, man. Let's go with Juan, and we'll start wrapping it up with Van Ho after.
Okay, thank you, Marcelo. I will try to wrap up as fast as I can in order of your time. Um, okay, regarding OG answer, where we need to go to the fundamental and macro tokenomics and micro tokenomics, where the macro tokenomics is the one that handle the whole ecosystem that is related to this token, which in this case it could be Avalanche. So Avalanche, he works as a central bank, being the macro institution who regulates the tokenomics itself. So when you are telling me that a micro company or a game itself decides to start doing rewards as a crazy, and that rewards will affect the macro tokenomics, it's like you are telling me a Pizza Hut starts selling things for free, and this will affect the whole economy of the country itself. This won't happen because the token will be handled by the central bank itself, which is the blockchain. And in order to get all these AVAX to give rewards, you need to have liquidity, and you need to pay for that from the very beginning. So if you implement the token of Avalanche on the first place, you need to have the liquidity, and you will be able to uh, to give all these organic rewards to your user. It means that you won't be able to use your token to devaluate your token, to devaluate the liquidity of the people that invest in your token, to destroy the economics of your token. And this is kind of the way that it will be better to use the universal token itself, because as a game you cannot affect your users. You won't be able, because you don't control the token itself. You need to ask for Avalanche to give me those tokens and give rewards. So it's impossible to affect the whole economics of the blockchain using the tokens of the blockchain itself in your game, either giving rewards or grant, etc., because you need the permission of Avalanche to do that. So that's why I I prefer games use the token of the blockchain, because the blockchain will regulate them, will regulate what they do, will be the one that control their misusing of the token, the asset, etc., etc. That is my point of view related to Web3 gaming. Related to Anthony's point of view, we need to go to the legal aspect. We need to go to MiCA regulation, where MiCA, the European Union, is trying to fix that blur that you mentioned. Whether if this token is a security, or whether if this token is a utility, or when you change it from utility to security. And when you change from utility to security, you need a CASP license. And when you need a CASP license, and you don't have it, and you sell it with that purpose, you're going to have problems with us. So this is something that we also have to pay attention to. That's the reason why blockchain is not taking off, because people are getting advantage of that blur. That's the reason why Web3 games and other projects related to Web3 are having problems. If you see OpenSea right now, the legal lawsuit that it will have with the United States, because there is a blur between that, and we're talking about billions of dollars that people lost. Related to Aero, what Aero say is totally true, man. I mean, we are paying attention too much about finance, and we're on the gaming industry, and there are no gaming things like Mario, like things that give identity to the game itself, that hooks you to the game. Game developers are focusing too much on tokens, on NFT sales, on revenue stream, but they are not focusing on love. They are not focusing on what keeps you hooked with the game itself. So this is what we're missing here. So instead of talking about tokenomics, macro tokenomics, micro tokenomics, man, just do a beautiful game and use the token of the blockchain and put the people to play there. That's it. This is what we need here. We need love. Less finance, more love. Identity. Thank you guys. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Juan. We need more love, baby. We need more love. Let's end it on a positive note. Van Ho, I'll pass it to you, and then I'm definitely going to have to start wrapping it up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was actually about to say, it's way past the top of the hour. This was a great conversation. I was really happy to be a part of it. Thank you so much for having me. Some great, different aspects, that's what I love about these spaces, is just hearing how everybody's mind works over the same topic, right? Like, we all have different ideas, and I just love that they're all unique or synonymous or whatever. I actually have to go to a game night for 100X podcast, who was just up here. If you're not in their Discord, go find them on the space. We are playing Castle of Blackwater right now. But yeah, super great game. If you're into Among Us and Sus, it is Beam, it is Avalanche, it's a few flagships. So come play with us in game night if you need something to do. If not, then let's leave it here. But thanks again for having me. Always a pleasure, Marcello. Like, I absolutely adore you. And mentioning my hard times earlier, you were there for through it all. So thank you for being that person that was there whenever things went wrong and telling me things will come and they'll get better, because it was true. It totally got better. So thank you for that. Thanks for always having me on. And I hope everybody here has a fantastic day as well.
Absolutely adore you back, Van Ho, and yes, I'm so happy to see that. It's only gonna get better, baby. It's only gonna get better. Thank you everybody for tuning in. Actually, just before we finish, I know we have Ruby from XP Network who also joined us on the panel. I'm not sure if we jump to you at all. I want to give you the opportunity to jump in if you'd like to say anything. If not, I'll start wrapping it up right after you. But you could go ahead, Ruby, if you'd like to chime in or drop anything that comes to mind. All right, well, we'll end it at that, unless I'm rugging too. Dustin was supposed to come up for a freestyle. I don't know where he's at. He's jumping on other spaces or something. But absolutely love you guys. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Please give every single one of our speakers a follow. We got NFT Go. We got Zip Clash. We got Anthony Mr. Dip. We got the OG. We got Arrow. We got Juan Vivas. We got Avalanche. We're gaming on Avalanche. We got Ruby. And we had so many other speakers, man. This was a 2 hour plus space. I got to actually do my job and do some stuff now. And I'm also going to be going to Toronto for the weekend to do some stuff, but got to take care of some things now. But thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Maybe soon enough, I'll be able to extend these spaces longer than 2 hours, because so much stuff to be shared here. So many amazing speakers. We had consecutively 60 listeners at one point. That was amazing. And yeah, man, these spaces just keep getting better. Can't believe we're already on episode 10. Episode 10. What the heck? Time flies by, man. It's been 2.5 months already hosting Game Time. It's going to be 3 months soon. We're going to keep hosting these every Friday at 10 a.m. EST. That's 2 p.m. UTC. That's 3 p.m. CET, and whatever other time zone that you're in. We got you. Amazing. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. I'm going to close out with the Game Time theme song, and we'll catch you on the next one. Until then, absolutely love you guys. Make sure to follow every one of our speakers. And yeah, shout out to everyone in the audience, too. Without you guys, these spaces would be nothing. So appreciate you guys so much. And it's Friday. It's Friday, so you better be gaming this weekend. Drop in the comments whatever games you're playing. And yeah, I want to see what everyone's playing. But until then, have a great one, everybody, and hope you enjoy your Friday.